The Calypso drifted through the void like a speck of dust in an endless desert, its smooth, unarmored hull gleaming under the distant light of a dying star. Inside, the hum of the engines was a steady, almost comforting presence, a sound Captain Elias Vance had long ago learned to ignore. He leaned over the navigation console, fingers tracing a slow route to the asteroid belt on the edge of charted Sector 9, a routine survey mission. The brass had called it boring. Safe. Next to him, Dr. Lean Gwyn adjusted her glasses, her sharp eyes scanning the latest biosign readings. Still nothing out here but rocks and cosmic dust, she muttered. If we were hoping for alien life, we picked the wrong corner of the galaxy. Vance smirked. You sound disappointed. I'd settle for a micro with a pulse at this point. Behind them, Engineer Rourke let out a dry chuckle as he tightened the panel on the life support systems. Careful what you wish for, document. Last thing we need is some space plague hitchhiking back to Earth. The banter was familiar, a rhythm as constant as the ship systems. They were scientists, not soldiers, a fact that had never mattered until now. Then the alarm screamed. The Calypso shuddered as if struck by an invisible hammer. Vance's hands flew across the controls, pulling up the external feeds. His blood turned to ice. 3 sleek, jagged vessels, unmistakably Zenter, dropped out of stealth near the asteroid belt, their plasma cannons glowing like predators' eyes in the dark. The lead ship, a hulking dreadnought with a hull scored by countless battles, locked onto them with terrifying precision. Evasive maneuvers. Vance barked, but even as Rourke slammed the thrusters, he knew it was pointless. The Calypso was built for scans, not speed. A transmission crackled through the comms, the voice a guttural snarl. Asterisk pathetic humans. You trespass in Zenter hunting grounds. Asterisk. Lean's fingers clenched around the edge of her console. They're hailing us. Vance opened the channel, forcing his voice steady. This is Captain Elias Vance of the Earth research vessel Calypso. We're on a peaceful mission. No hostile intent. Laughter, harsh, mocking, rippled through the speakers. Asterisk, no weapons. No shields. You are prey. Asterisk, the lead Zenter's face filled the screen, his scaled lips peeling back from serrated teeth. Asterisk, I am Vorath the Bloodied, and your ship is mine. Asterisk, the connection cut. A second later, the Calypso rocked violently as grappling hooks slammed into its hull. Rourke cursed, scrambling to stabilize the power grid. They're boarding us. Vance grabbed a sidearm from the emergency locker, useless against Zenter armor, but better than nothing. Seal the bulkheads. Buy us time. Too late. With a deafening screech, the main hatch exploded inward. Zenter warriors poured through, their armored claws ripping through metal like paper. The humans fell back, but there was nowhere to run. Vorsk strode in last, his massive frame dominating the corridor. He sniffed the air, then let out a derisive hiss. Asterisk fear. I taste it on you. Asterisk he backhanded a nearby crewman to the ground, relishing the whimper of pain. Asterisk, this is what the mighty humans are? Soft. Weak. Asterisk. Vance stepped forward, weapon raised. Take the ship, but let my crew go. Vorsk's laughter was a blade to the gut. Asterisk. You do not command here. You beg. Asterisk he gestured, and his warriors seized the humans, shoving them toward the cargo hold. As they were herded like livestock, Lean caught Vance's eye. They're toying with us, she whispered. He knew. The Zenter weren't just raiders. They were hunters, and they enjoyed the chase. Then, as the last of the crew was forced into hold, a distant sound echoed through the ship. A thud. Then another. Vorsk's head snapped up. Asterisk, what was that? Asterisk. No one answered. Somewhere deep in the Calypso, a biohazard light flickered to life, and something stirred in the dark. The cargo hold was cold, the air thick with a metallic scent of fear. Captain Elias Vance kept his back to the wall, watching the Zenter warriors pace like caged beasts. Their laughter was rough, mocking, until the first scream tore through the ship. It came from the lower decks. A guttural wet shriek, cut short. Vorsk's head snapped toward the door, his slit pupils narrowing. Karath! He barked at one of his warriors. Asterisk report. Asterisk silence. Then a thud. Something heavy dragging across the floor. The Zenther exchanged glances, their cocky swagger faltering. Vance caught Lean's eye. She mouthed a single word. Asterisk lab 4. Asterisk. A chill crawled down his spine. Vorsk snarled and grabbed a human engineer by the collar, lifted him off his feet. Asterisk, what trick is this? Asterisk. The man gasped. And none. We didn't. A distorted voice crackled over the ship's comms. Karatha's, but warped, wet. Commander, it's a crunch. Static. The Zenther dropped the engineer and unsheathed his plasma claws. You too, he ordered his remaining warriors. Asterisk, find it. Kill it. Asterisk. They hesitated. Vance seized a moment. You think we did this? He kept his voice low, urgent. We're locked in here with you. Whatever's out there isn't human. Vorsk's nostrils flared. Then, with a growl, he activated his wristcom. Asterisk. All units, converge on Sector D. Hostile on board. Asterisk. No response. The lights flickered. Dr. Lingwin had seen the files. Black level clearance. Eyes only. The thing in lab for wasn't supposed to be alive. She edged closer to Vance. If it's loose, she whispered. It's adapting. Fast. He didn't ask how she knew. The grim set of her jaw said enough. A Zenther warrior burst back into hold. His armor splattered with something dark and viscous. Asterisk commander. The thing, it took Jax. Ripped through his armor like asterisk. A shadow moved behind him. Too fast to see, just a blur of spiked limbs and gnashing teeth. The warrior barely had time to turn before his head snapped sideways with a sickening crack. His body crumpled. The humans recoiled. The Zenther opened fire. Plasma bolts seared the air, but the creature, asterisk Vorath asterisk, was already gone. Only a smear of black blood marked where it had been. Vorsk roared in fury. Asterisk, what is this abomination? Asterisk. Lean's voice was hollow. Something older than your empire. And hungrier. A clang echoed from the vents above. Everyone looked up. Engineer Rourke had stayed quiet, calculating. Now he grabbed Vance's arm. The reactor, he hissed. If we overload the core and fry ourselves with it? Vance shook his head. Not yet. A Zenther warrior suddenly jerked upward, yanked into ceiling vents by an unseen force. His screams were muffled, then silenced. Panic erupted. The remaining warriors fired wildly, shredding pipes and wiring. Steam hissed from ruptured conduits. Vorsk backed toward the door, his bravado crumbling. Asterisk, seal this deck. Now! Asterisk, Lean lunged through control panel. Do that, and you're trapping us all with it. The commander hesitated. Then the Vorath dropped from the vent behind him. It had grown. Jax's armor was fused to its exoskeleton now, half digested, twisted into jagged plating. Its maw split open, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. Vorsk spun, claws slashing, but the Vorath moved faster. It lunged, sinking talons into his chest plate. Metal screeched, buckling. Vance didn't think. He grabbed a fallen plasma rifle and fired. The shot grazed the creature's flank. It shrieked, a sound that vibrated in their bones, then vanished into the shadows. Vorsk staggered, clutching his chest. Black blood oozed between his fingers. For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes. We need to move, Vance said. The Zenther commander didn't argue. The bridge was a graveyard. Bodies, human and Zenther alike, littered the floor. The viewport was cracked, the stars beyond distorted like a funhouse mirror. Rourke sprinted to controls. I can rig containment field, but it'll take time. Lean pulled up the security feeds. Her breath caught. It's hurting us. Screen after screen showed the Vorath lurking at the edges of corridors, darting just out of sight. Testing. Learning. Vorsk growled. Asterisk, it's toying with us. Asterisk. Vance's grip tightened on the rifle. No, it's hunting. A proximity alert blared. The Zenther dreadnought, still tethered to Calypso, was powering its engines. Lean's eyes widened. They're abandoning us. Vorsk snarled and grabbed the comm asterisk. "This is Commander Vorsk." "Cease!" asterisk. The Vorath's face filled the screen. It had learned to use the console. For a heartbeat, the entire bridge froze. Then the creature smiled, and the comms erupted with the sound of tearing metal. The dreadnought's feed cut to static. "Silence." Vance exhaled. "It's on their ship, too." The last Zenther warrior turned to Vorsk, his voice trembling. "Asterisk, what do we do?" Asterisk. The commander looked at Vance. For the first time, it wasn't a glare of contempt. It was a plea. Outside, the vents rattled. End of Section 2. Word count, 1,500. The bridge lights flickered like a dying heartbeat as Vance met Vorsk's gaze. The Zenther commander scales had lost their luster, dulled by pain and something no warrior of his kind would ever admit, dread. The Vorath had torn through his best soldiers like they were nothing. Now, with the dreadnought's calm silent, the truth was inescapable. They were trapped aboard a floating tomb with a predator that outmatched them all. Vance broke the silence first. "We need to work together." Vorsk's claws flexed, but the usual venom in his voice was gone. Asterisk, "You expect me to trust humans?" Asterisk, "No, I expect you to want to live." A shudder ran through the ship's frame, something heavy moving in the maintenance shafts. Lean's fingers flew across the console, pulling up a distorted thermal scan. "It's between us and engineering, and it's changing." The image flickered, showing a grotesque amalgamation of spiked chitin and half-digested Zenther armor plating. Rourke cursed under his breath. "It's evolving, using what it kills." Vorsk hissed, his wounded chest heaving. Asterisk, "Then we deny it material." Asterisk, he turned to his last remaining warrior. Asterisk, "Burn the dead." Asterisk, the warrior recoiled. "Commander, the rights." Asterisk, "Do it." Asterisk, as the Zenther moved to obey, Vance grabbed a toolkit from the emergency locker. "Lean, can we lure it into the reactor chamber?" She swallowed hard. "Maybe, but if we overload the core, we'll all die," Rourke finished. "Unless we're not on the ship when it blows." Vorsk's head snapped up. Asterisk, the escape pods. Asterisk, Vance nodded. "One problem. The Vorath is between us and the hangar." A new voice cut in. "The ship's AI, glitching but functional." Asterisk, alert. "Secondary containment breach in Lab 4. Specimen maturation at 87%. Asterisk, Lean went pale. "There's more than one." The plan was desperate, but it was all they had. Rourke would rig the reactor to overload while Vance and Vorsk led a decoy team toward the hangar, drawing the Vorath away. Lean would bypass the damaged security systems, sealing corridors behind them. The Zenther warrior balked. Asterisk, "You expect us to be bait?" Asterisk, Vorsk silenced him with a look. Asterisk, "We are hunters. Now we hunt." Asterisk, he turned to Vance. "But if you betray us, you'll kill me?" Pretty sure that thing's first in line. For a heartbeat, something almost like respect passed between them. Then the moment shattered as a scream echoed from the corridor. Human this time. The Vorath had found the surviving crew in the medbay. No more time. The halls were a nightmare of flickering lights and blood-smeared walls. Vance moved at point, his stolen plasma rifle scanning the shadows. Vorsk limped beside him, his breathing ragged but his claws steady. Behind them, the last Zenther warrior kept watch, his weapon trained on every vent, every open conduit. A scrape of metal. Vance froze. The Vorath dropped from the ceiling in front of them, larger now, its body studded with jagged pieces of armor and torn wiring. It cocked its head, as if studying them. Learning. Vorsk didn't hesitate. He fired. The plasma blast seared across the creature's shoulder, but it barely flinched. With a sound like shattering glass, it lunged. Vance dove aside, rolling behind a support beam. "Lean, now!" The emergency bulkhead slammed down, cutting the Vorath off from the rest of the ship, but not before it lashed out. A spike-like limb impaled the Zenther warrior through the chest, lifting him off the ground like a grisly trophy. Vorsk roared, unloading his weapon into the creature's face. It screeched, retreating into the darkness, dragging the dying warrior with it. The comm crackled. Asterisk, Vance! It's heading your way, through the vents. Asterisk Lean's voice was frantic. Vorse grabbed Vance's arm. Asterisk run. Asterisk. They ran. The hangar was a graveyard of half-dismantled shuttles, but one pod remained intact. Barely. Rourke was already there, his hands bloody from bypassing fried circuits. 2 minutes to overload, he panted. Where's? A crash echoed from the corridor. The Vorath was coming. Vorse turned, bracing himself. Asterisk, go. Asterisk, Vance didn't move. You're coming with us. Asterisk, I'm already dead. Asterisk, the Zenther tapped his chest wound, black blood bubbling at the edges. Asterisk, the poison is in my veins, but I will not let it take me. Asterisk, he bared his teeth. Asterisk, go, or this is for nothing. Asterisk, another crash, closer. Vance hesitated, then nodded. Give it hell. Vorse's laugh was a rasp. Asterisk, tell your people we were wrong about you. Asterisk, the pod door sealed as the Vorath burst into the hangar. The last thing Vance saw was Vorse charging, claws blazing, as the reactor's warning sirens reached a crescendo. Then light, pain, silence. End of Section 3. Word count 1,500. The escape pod tumbled through space like a dying ember, its hull groaning under the shockwave of the Calypso's destruction. Inside, Vance braced against the console as debris pinged against the thin metal shell. The others were silent, Lean gripping her seat with white-knuckled hands, Rourke muttering prayers under his breath. Only the emergency lights illuminated their hollow-eyed stares. Then stillness. Vance forced himself to move, checking the sensors. The blast took out most of the debris field. No sign of the Vorath. Lean exhaled sharply. You think it... A metallic screech cut her off. Something slammed against the pod's exterior. Rourke's head snapped up. Oh, God! It hitched a ride. The creature's claws scraped along the hull, searching for weakness. Vance watched in horror as a razor-tipped limb punched to the wall near the oxygen tanks, barely missing Lean's head. The pod's alarms wailed as atmosphere hissed out. Brace for decompression. Vance lunged for the emergency sealant, but the Vorath was faster. The entire ceiling panel tore away, revealing the Nightmare. Its body now fused with chunks of the Calypso's reactor shielding, glowing faintly with residual heat. It had evolved again. Lean screamed as it dropped into their midst. Vance grabbed a fire extinguisher and swung with all his strength. The impact sent the creature reeling, but only for a second. It recovered with unnatural speed, its maw splitting into a grotesque smile. Then the pod's damaged thrusters sputtered to life. The sudden acceleration threw everyone sideways. The Vorath shrieked as it slid toward the gaping hole in the hull, its claws digging furrows in the floor. Rourke, half crushed under a storage crate, gasped, "The autopilot! It's taking us toward the planet!" Vance understood instantly. The pod's failsafe had activated, but the Vorath wouldn't let them reach the surface alive. He met Lean's eyes. She knew it too. There was only one way this ended. He yanked the manual release for the emergency hatch. The last of the pod's atmosphere exploded outward, sucking the Vorath toward the void. It fought, anchoring itself with those terrible claws, but Vance didn't hesitate. He grabbed a severed support strut and charged. The impact sent them both tumbling into space. For a heartbeat, Vance floated weightless, staring into the creature's black, pupil-less eyes. It thrashed, tried to latch onto him, but he kicked free just as the pod's thrusters flared again. The blast hurled him back toward the pod's open hatch. Lean's hand clamped around his wrist, hauling him inside as Rourke slammed the hatch shut. Outside, the Vorath spun away into the darkness, its shrieks fading as the pod streaked toward the planet's atmosphere. Silence. Then Rourke laughed, a raw, disbelieving sound. We're alive. Vance didn't answer. He was staring at the scorch marks on his sleeve where the creature had grabbed him. The fabric was frayed. Beneath it, his skin itched. Lean followed his gaze. Her breath caught. The pod hurtled toward the surface, trailing fire like a falling star. End of Section 4. Word count 1,500.